Hey, welcome back to the second video in the series on being proactive with your digital assets, looking to get them into an LLC or trust prior to price appreciation, and working through the different constraints that you might have in your life that would allow you to evaluate that and decide what's going to be best for you and your family for the long term. So today we're going to get into the constraints I have listed here, and if they apply to you, that's great. I just want to say, as always, nothing here is financial advice. Always consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Everything here is for entertainment and educational purposes only. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this couple, again, I have the privilege of, meeting with a lot of people that are looking to be proactive, talking them through these different constraints and helping them evaluate, the different possibilities that they have. So this couple, they're 45 years old. We're pretty close to it. They have a combined total income of $150,000 between the two of them. They're located in Georgia, or another state that has moderate state tax, not New York or California. And they also don't have no state taxes, like maybe Texas or Florida. This is somewhere between, 2% and 5% state tax or state income tax that they're going to have to pay. They are married. So they're going to be filing jointly or with head of household on their tax returns. They have 3 children that are dependents, and we'll say that they are, a variety of ages all the way from 4 to 15, okay? They are homeowners, but they do have a mortgage, and we're going to say that they got this at the bottom of the market. They've got, 3% on a fixed rate mortgage over 30 years. Their objectives when their digital asset investments go to the moon are they want to start a business, they want to create passive income, and they want to do some charitable work through a foundation. So I'm going to run down all of the different options that this couple might entertain, and then walk you through why or why not they might choose some of those options. So, the other piece here, they do have $150,000 invested in digital assets, and half of that, $75,000, is in an IRA or an individual retirement account that they can't draw on or really leverage until they're 59 and a half. Again, as always, we're going to be cognizant of the gift tax threshold. We think these assets are going to appreciate substantially. And so, again, that's kind of why we're even having these conversations. If you didn't think that, then you probably wouldn't be so worried. You would just pay your taxes. But if you are concerned about that, then obviously you want to get those assets into vehicles that would allow you to at least increase the amount that you're able to write off against your income, or protect those assets in some other manner. So we're going to walk through the 3 different things that they could do here. Because they have philanthropic interests, we're going to include a foundation or charitable remainder trust in how we're going to walk through this outside of just the scope of what we would normally discuss, which would be an LLC or potentially an asset protection trust. So we'll go ahead and walk through the LLC. If they do that, they've got $75,000 that they can move into that. If they are going to take profit, that might be a good idea. Again, because they're in Georgia and they do have state tax, if they filed that LLC in Wyoming, they would be subject to the state taxes in Wyoming, which there aren't any. If they do wanted to protect the anonymity and get the assets out of their personal name, an LLC would make a lot of sense. And again, if they're going to take profit, be able to offset some of that income by purchasing vehicles or deploying that capital into starting a business or other investments that could create the passive income that they're looking for. So great option there. Again, an LLC is going to cost you somewhere between $300 and $800 to get set up. Now let's get into the trust side of things. Would a trust make sense in this situation? Why or why not? Well, if you get $12.92 million per person that you can move into a trust with no tax implications, let's say that they got 100x on their digital assets and their investments. Well, in a combined total, they're going to be looking at $15 million. So between the two of them, they get $25.84 million that they could move into a trust with no tax implications. Well beneath that threshold, no problems. And again, half of that's in an IRA. So $7.5 million in their personal names, they move it in there, no problems. So trust probably doesn't make sense in this scenario to spend the, $3,000 to $25,000. That money could be invested in the digital assets and appreciate substantially. And the offset that they're going to get on the taxes for setting up the trust now, there might be benefits there. If they thought that they were going to pass away very quickly, maybe one of these individuals is ill. I could see a circumstance where that makes sense. Or let's say this is another scenario that I have seen a few times. One of the children or a few of the children do have mental issues or something where they're on SSI. And if those children get a certain amount of income, they lose their benefits from the state. And so we do work with individuals in that situation to make sure that things are structured in a way that those children can maintain their benefits, but also get the benefits of a trust. And so those are just some circumstances in which that might make sense, but with a broad brushstroke, if those things don't exist, an LLC could definitely make sense in this situation. But again, we're going to touch on the fact that they want to start a foundation and have some charitable interest. So let's say we do see significant price appreciation. They do take profits. They want to set up the foundation. If you are going to take a good amount of profit and you do want to offset those tax implications, a charitable remainder trust might make a lot of sense in this situation. You could form a foundation and then set up the charitable remainder trust, make a donation to the charitable remainder trust. You get a lot of tax benefits there. But again, that only makes sense if you're going to be donating in cash. Okay, there's stipulations on how the cash has to be invested inside a charitable remainder trust in order to meet the qualifications and get those tax benefits. And if you're going to be wanting to keep the assets in kind to be able to leverage those to produce income for yourselves, maybe not so much on the making sense size there. So, but you can set up the foundation or charity. And there's two different types of charities or foundations. There's a reason there's a differentiation in the name. So charity is going to be a public entity, and a foundation is a private entity. If you make donations to a charity, you can donate up to 60% of your annual gross income in cash, and then up to 30% in kind or in assets. And you can offset your tax implications there. So let's say they saw the $7.5 million, crazy liquidity event, awesome for them. And they want to cash out a third of that, and then they're also going to donate a third of that in kind to the charity or the foundation that they set up. Well, I guess sorry, I didn't tell you the other part. So say they set up a foundation, you can donate up to 30% in cash of your adjusted gross income to the foundation or the private entity that has philanthropic interest, or 20% of your adjusted gross income in kind. So if they're going to set up a charity, they can donate more. If it's a foundation, can donate less. So let's revise that a little bit. Let's say they want to set up a foundation. They're going to take 20% off the table. So they're going to sell, what does that end up being? If it was $8 million, it would be 1.6 that they'd be selling. So a little bit less than that. We'll say 1.3 is about 20%-ish of 7.5. And so let's say they're going to make that same amount and they're going to donate that amount in kind to a foundation that they set up. And so now they've offset their taxable income for the year and they have money or assets in the foundation that they can, continue to leverage and produce income and do really good things with. And they can put their kids on the board and pay them a salary and, all the other things that the wealthy families do. Not knocking it. I think it's a great way to, protect your assets and do a lot of good in the world. So that's just some of the other ways that you might think through this. So in this circumstance, they might not need to do anything previous to price appreciation. If that's all they thought they were going to get. If they think they're going to get 1,000x on something crazy, probably need to at least get it in an LLC, and then can make a donation from there. But if this is their main point of interest, the philanthropic focus, which a lot of people I meet with, it is, they don't need a whole lot themselves. They want to live a comfortable life and take care of themselves and their family, but they really want to give back to their community or a certain cause, and they feel really compelled to do that. You might not even need to set anything up here in the short term. You might just wait until price appreciation happens, set you up a foundation, cash out some to your personal name, be able to use that to pay off your home. And so let's talk about that, their mortgage here. I've talked about this before, but some people want to pay down debts. Their quality of life is lessened by this debt that's hanging over their head, regardless of the interest rate, okay? 3% is killer. It's like getting free money. So for me personally, I would just pay the minimum on that puppy for forever. But for some people, they don't like that looming debt and they want to pay that off. And so that's what I would say in that circumstance. If you're just a numbers person and it makes sense for you to just continue to make the minimum payment on the fixed 30-year at 3%, cool. You can put that money to work that you would have made 3% on by paying off your mortgage to work somewhere else, right? You can put it in a savings account right now and earn 5% on it, okay? So in the numbers context, it does not make sense to use the appreciation and the profits that you make on your digital asset investments to pay off a 3% mortgage. Doesn't make sense. But again, if that stress hinders your quality of life, it completely makes sense. So it's person dependent. So we're going to say, these individuals, they want to get rid of that debt. They're old school. They don't like having debt, and they want to pay off their home and know that they're secured, even though they still got to pay taxes and insurance and the other stuff on it. And that's going to pull out of escrow. Anyway, they want to pay that off. So when they cash out that 1.3, some of that's going to go toward their mortgage. They want to put their kid through school. They want to put into college fund to make sure their kids are set up. They want to do some other stuff like that, and they want to start that business, right? And so then they can move the money into the business at that point, take the deductions there, So really, if I'm having this conversation with them and we've been through their constraints, it might make sense for this couple to just go ahead and wait for price appreciation because they do have the philanthropic interest, and they do want to donate a portion to a private foundation or a charity that they want to set up post-liquidity event. And that's their primary focus. That's probably the direction that they would go. So just continue to dollar cost average. Don't really need to, spend a bunch of money now on an LLC or a trust and set things up, because you can do it post-liquidity event and be able to offset your taxable income, pay down your debts, and live a happy life. So hopefully this was valuable for you. Again, not everybody needs to do these things pre-liquidity event, depending on what your long-term goals are. And hopefully, this has been valuable in that context. If you do have philanthropic or charitable interests, it might not be necessary for you to go ahead and set things up now. So if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next one in the series.